So do investors really want environment and social sustainability? I think given a choice, given information that we don't typically give them, they would prefer to invest in a company that has demonstrated environment and social sustainability, provided, of course, financial returns are the same. So if you're given the choice of company A, company B, similar returns, yes, you would pick the one that has environment and social sustainability. So I think the education that really needs to happen is a complete understanding that if you are a company that is not environmentally compliant or environmentally friendly, and to some extent also socially, because when you're socially in that space, you could come into community conflict. For example, you could be using water that the community believes it's its right, and you have not had inclusive enough policies. Your factory could be asked to shut down. If you aren't environmentally compliant, as indeed has happened to many companies in India most recently, and India is where I come from, the power sector had to shut down because the coal supply chain was not seen as being adherent in terms of environment friendliness. So if you don't build these risks in terms of a compliance to an adequate standard, whether environment or social, in the long run, the company does suffer. So I would say the long-term financial return is also dependent on having this environment sustainability and social sustainability on the agenda. The problem really is that the information available to the investor isn't always there to make this decision. So what we should be doing more of is maybe having ratings, put that information out there, share what is available, and encourage companies to share more so that they are rewarded for being more environment friendly and socially sustainable. So I think if one were to look at behavior of investors across Europe, North America, and in Asia and the Middle East, for example, what you find is the large investors, the large fund managers, are in fact driving markets no matter where. So if you look at the Indian stock market, it goes up and down depending on foreign institutional investors. So the names that are investing, the funds that are investing, may be separate in that it could be an India fund or an Asia fund, but it may well come from the same big fund managers, the Capitals of the world and so on, that exist around the world. And the principles, therefore, of investing for these large fund managers remain the same. Interestingly, I find even the sovereign wealth funds are managing to the same standards. So your large investors which drive markets are pretty much adhering to a similar standard. So I don't think it matters which market you look at, whether it's Asia or otherwise, because the fund managers are pretty much being driven by the same principles. And then the domestic fund managers, who may have had other standards, begin to also come up the curve in terms of the standard that is being offered. So the standard setting may start with the global managers, but domestic fund managers are not far behind as they move forward. So the standard, I think, is pretty much the same. And I think the good news there is that companies begin to recognize this. We don't have enough sort of FTSEs for good and such stock exchange indicators. It would be great to see more of this, but I can understand how the challenge of actually providing the information, rating it, and ensuring that you can adhere to a standard is not easy in terms of assembling of that information.